Shalom. This is Hadassah Saiwan returning with the book of Revelation revised. And we're looking at chapter 15 called The Worshippers of the Beast Are Condemned. So, as I've been doing before, what we're going to do now, we're going to go through the chapters that we've covered thus far, so that you can see the sequence of events that have been taking place in this revision. Chapter 1, we have the revelation of Hamashiach. Chapters 2 and 3, the letters of judgment to the seven assemblies. Chapter 4, in the throne room. Chapter 5, who is worthy to open the book? Chapter 6, Part 1, the four seals. Chapter 6, Part 2, the woman and the dragon. Chapter 7, the reaping of the southern kingdom. Chapter 8, the rise of the two beasts. Chapter 9, Part 1, the sifting of the northern kingdom begins. Chapter 9, Part 2, the coming judgments of the two olive trees. Chapter 10, the second exodus of the northern kingdom begins. Chapter 11, the two woes. Chapter 12, the seven thunders and the seventh trumpet. This is an extension of chapter 12. It's called the second exodus of the northern kingdom according to the book of Revelation, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we have chapter 13, the judgment of the whore of Babylon begins, and this is part 1 and 2. We also have an extension of chapter 13, parts 3 and 4, called the Roman Catholic Church and Christianity. Then we have chapter 14, Babylon the Great is fallen, and that is part 1 and part 2. And now we are at chapter 15 and we are closing in. Soon we'll be at the very ending of this marvelous book of Revelation, this marvelous book of prophecy. And just a little while longer before we reach the good stuff, the happy ending. So let's get started. This chapter is about 8 verses long, but it's still quite a hefty chapter with lots of information. Verse 1. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, and kindred, and tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear Alahayam, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and the earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Alahayam, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascends up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receives the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of Alahayam and the faith of Yahawasha'o. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, Blessed are the dead who die in Yahweh from henceforth, said Harawak, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. Now we have come to the judgment set against the inhabitants on the earth who submitted to the beast empire, its image, and the anti-Messiah. We haven't heard much about him since seal number seal number 6. Yes, that's it. We haven't heard much about the anti-Messiah, but he's still around. An empire always needs an emperor, and he is the emperor for the New World Order. Right? He's the king. And Alahayam, after, let's review what has happened thus far, or according to the studies that we've done. The southern kingdom, they're safely in their land. In third heaven. The northern kingdom, they're safely in their land, which is the land of Yashua, our land. Okay. So this is judgment now on the earth against the Gentile nations. Alahayam now is sifting the Gentile nations because some of them, not a great number, but a remnant of them will have a portion of our inheritance. Why? Because they will submit to Alahayam and they will submit to us. They will worship Alahayam and they will acknowledge him as their Alahayam. They will put away their pagan worship and their pagan idols. So now Alahayam is turning his attention to the Gentile nations of non-Yashrael descent to sift them to see who will worship him and who will not. Also, at the same time, he is bringing punishment, condemnation to the ones who worship the beast, who took his mark, his number, and his name. Now, I explained all of this in a previous study, but we will touch a little bit on it as we go along. Alahayam, he judged the whore, and we know the whore will be the pagan center that will rule over this earth. It will also be the center for trade and commerce. All of the earth's resources will flow to her and from her to whomever will purchase from her. However, in order to purchase from her, you have to be one of her worshippers. All right. So Alahayam has judged the whore. She's burnt to the ground. And now he's turning his attention to the inhabitants on the earth who submitted to the beast empire, its image, and of course the anti-Messiah. Babylon, the city of trade and pagan religion, has been destroyed, and anyone caught within her city was also destroyed. She was burnt to the ground. Also, at the same time, the Satan, who was the puppet master, or who will be the puppet master of this entity, will be cast into the lake of fire, never to rise up again. So, slowly, it's not slowly. No, it's not slowly. Quickly, the systems are being taken down and eternally destroyed. Alahayam himself, this is Yahweh, destroyed Babylon. All right, and we're going to see that the judgment against Babylon has been long set. He has spoken through his prophets his judgment against Babylon long before, even though it was the empire Babylon, the empire, it is still the same entity, meaning the same puppet master that dealt with the empire. The same puppet master that possessed the beast empire. Sorry, it's not. Yes, the beast empire called Babylon. The empire is the same Satan that possess or will possess Babylon, the great city, the whore. All right. Getting my words a bit tangled there already in the beginning of this study. Okay, let's carry on. Now Alahayam will turn his attention to the rest of the earth to continue his judgments and his punishments against those who are rebellious. This is not yet the final 7 vials, which are due to occur shortly to complete his judgments and the destruction of evil. This will now be the judgment set against all the people who will be worshippers of the beast and who submitted to taking their toxon to show their allegiance with them, the beast, to be their worshippers on this level. So the allegiance to the beast, the empire, its image, the anti-Messiah, and even whoever is left over from the whore, because the city was destroyed, but there will be people that came from different other different cities, other cities that were not in the city of Babylon when it was destroyed. So all of these people will be judged. Now, we'll see in the next few chapters, when the vials are poured out, that will be the actual punishment poured out upon these inhabitants. Right now, Alahayam is passing his judgment. They're being convicted. All right? And when I say convicted, I mean for condemnation. So let's get started with verse 1 in Revelation chapter 15 revised. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, and kindred, and tongue, and people. Verse 2, saying with a loud voice, Fear Alahayam, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. Now we see that there's an angel that is preaching. I wanted to say given, but he is preaching the everlasting gospel. What is the everlasting gospel? The good news. The same good news that the 12 tribes had to receive in order to worship Alahayam, to be in covenant with him, okay, or is the same gospel that the earth, the inhabitants, the Gentile nations on the earth will have to submit to. And what is this everlasting gospel, the good news? Worship Alahayam. He is the one who made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the fountains of water. He is creator. You worship him. And if you don't worship him, because there are no gray areas, if you don't worship him, then what happens? You will perish. There's not a place called no man's land where people can decide, well, I can't decide which God I'm going to worship, so I'm going to not worship anything. All right, there's no such area when it comes to the decision that he will place before all of us. We have to choose. Either you choose him or you don't. If you don't choose him, you are a pagan worshiper. If you choose him, then now you are called into the fold. And one of the first things that the angel cried out, he said, "Fear Alahayam and give glory to him." We have to fear Alahayam. Why? Because he is awesome. He is fearsome. He deserves the glory. And yes, he wants us to fear him because of what he can do to us. But most importantly, he wants us to fear him, meaning have reverence for him. Because when you have reverence for him, you will respect him and you will respect his word. You will walk in obedience to him and you will walk in obedience to his word. We will walk in obedience to him. Many are teaching that the 144,000 elect of Alahayam will be sent back to the earth with supernatural powers to preach to those on the earth. Now, I covered the 144,000 first fruits. That's what is called the 144,000 first fruits of Yahweh. I did an extensive study on that. But now we're in the book of Revelation. We're going to touch on it again. Actually, in Revelation chapter 17, revised. This is the revision. We're going to do another detailed look at the 144,000, but with respect to the book of Revelation and understanding why, and to understand why they're not going to be sent back to the earth and who they are. I mean, if you already watched the previous study, you'll have an idea of who they are. They're priests. They're going to be the priesthood. There's no big secret about it. They are going to be the priesthood. That's why they're going to follow Hamashiach, who is the high priest forever. They're going to follow him no matter where he goes. But what people don't understand is why Alahayam required 12,000 sons from each of the 12 tribes. I went into detail why that happened. I even touched on it on one of my last studies, which had to do with the second exodus of the northern kingdom according to the book of Revelations, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think the latter part of that study goes into detail as to who these 144,000 are and why they belong to Alahayam and why they will be following Hamashiach. However, we have brethren that are teaching that the 144,000 are men and women. Actually, there's some women teaching it too. And according to the book of Revelation, where it gives a description of these elect of Alahayam, they did not take the word as it is spoken. They try to find a way around the words, the prophecy, so that all people are inclusive, meaning men or women, men and women. For example, it says that they are men, virgins. Okay, let's use those two words for example. Some people especially the females that are out there preaching that they're part of the 144,000. They say that men can be inclusive of women, because when Alahayam, or sorry, when the wording in the Bible, when it speaks of men, sometimes it is inclusive of women. All right, that's their excuse to be a part of the 144,000. Another word that they used and they explain away is the word virgin. And they say virgin doesn't necessarily have to mean a person who has not have sexual intercourse, who's never been with a partner, whether a husband or a wife, depending on the gender. It has to do with the fact that they are sole worshippers of Alahayam. They worship only Alahayam. They worship no other gods. Because, yes, Alahayam calls our forefathers harlots when he called them, when they went a whoring, when they went and started worshiping other gods. They started bowing down to pagan idols. He calls that whoring. And we also looked at that when we looked at the whore of Babylon, why she was called the whore. Okay, well, yes, because that is relatable to the subject to which Alahayam is speaking of. However, it's not relatable here. A virgin is a virgin. Okay, it's like the same thing with Mariam. When it says that she was a virgin, no, they want to change that to mean that when they say she was a virgin, it just simply meant that she was not handmaid, sorry, a maiden, a young maiden. I'm like, okay, to fit the narrative, people will try to explain away and take things out of context. You cannot take the word of Alahayam out of context to fit your narrative. It has to fit his context in which he is speaking to us. Now, if you take yourself out of the equation, then maybe you will see clearly. Maybe you will understand that men here, well, when we get to that chapter, men mean men. Virgins mean virgins. All right? There's no, it's not being used symbolically, in other words. It is as he's spoken it. And for this reason, people go even farther astray to think that the 144,000 are living today. They're not here yet. Those that will be regathered will be the parents of the 144,000. So they're not born yet. All right? Once we are regathered, whether it is third heaven, the kingdom of heaven, or the land of Yashraal, which is for the northern kingdom, until we join them at the reign of Hamashiach, we are not returning to minister to anybody on the earth. We have done our due. We've gotten our rewards. I'm waiting for the final reward, which will come at the end of the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach, where we will be completely transformed to be like angels. All right, the completion of our transformation. But in the meantime, we will be both spiritual and physical. And we looked at that when we read in the book of Hanawak. Was it? I believe it was Hanawak. And when he was taken to third heaven, where the kingdom of heaven is, the Garden of Odan, and he said it is both physical and spiritual. All right? And that's how we will be, because that's how Adam and Hawa were when they were living in the Garden of Odan. Garden of Odan was on the earth. Alahayam came down and went up. The angels came down and went up. So the garden was both physical and spiritual, because Adam and Hawa were physical, but they were also spiritual. All right? They were able to see into the spiritual realm. Nothing was hidden from them. They were living in the light because they had the light of Alahayam flowing from inside of them outward. Okay? So when we are regathered, we're going to be transformed to be as they were. Okay? But we will still maintain our physical bodies. Not saying when the 1,000-year reign comes that those that are resurrected to life will not have physical bodies. Yes, they will. They will have physical bodies, but those ones will be like the angels. Anyways, when we go into the chapter 17, I am going to do a detailed look at that to show you what life will be like on the earth. In fact, this would not be only chapter 17, but also chapter 19, when Hamashiach returns to the earth to reign as king. I will go into detail to show you some of those things. But going back to the 144,000, they are not supernatural soldiers. They're not superheroes. There's nothing of the sort. They are the priesthood of Alahayam. And there's no one coming back to the earth to minister to the Gentile nations here. Why would he bring us back here? Honestly, think about it. Would you want to come back to this wretched place with all the devils and demons? You're living in paradise. You want to leave paradise to come back to the earth for what reason? For what purpose? For what purpose would it benefit Alahayam when he's the one who's bringing about the judgments, and the judgments are coming to an end? What would it profit him to bring us out of safety to minister to these heathens? Why? Tell me. It does not make any sense. And that's exactly what I have here. This does not make any sense whatsoever. So let us put aside that they are talking about the 144,000 saints. Why would Alahayam deliver his people then to return them to the earth to minister to the Gentiles? Knowing full well that many of these Gentiles were our persecutors, or the offspring of those that persecuted us. And that's another thing. We've been slaves on this earth, slaves and servants for so many generations, and we've been beat down and put down and kicked down and stepped on. And you want to come back to minister to these ones? I'm not saying that we shouldn't have forgiveness. But why would you want to risk your life to come back to save them? Nobody ever tried to help us. No one, as I'm speaking right now, which nation on this earth, who has ever reached out to help the Negroes? No one. And that's the reason why Alahayam has to bring these ones through the ringer, because many of them are the offspring of our persecutors, the ones who enslaved us. The very same way how we are enduring the curses of our forefathers, the punishments that began with them and extended to us, the same thing has to happen to the Gentiles. Yes, the generation at this point of time may not be the ones that enslaved us, but their ancestors did. Their ancestors were the ones who enslaved us. And Alahayam made a prophecy about that. He said he's going to destroy all those who enslaved us, even their offspring. He's going to wipe them off the face of this earth. The only people that he will save alive, if they will worship him, are the ones who never enslaved us. Okay? All right. So this is their time of judgment and to receive their just rewards, whether to receive a portion of our inheritance or to receive eternal condemnation. So their just reward could be condemnation or a portion of our inheritance. The decision at this point of time will be up to them. First of all, the 144,000 saints, when they are received by Alahayam HaMashiach, they will remain with him for all eternity, for they are his sons and his priesthood. Next, when the southern kingdom is regathered by Hamashiach, they will not be seeing the earth again until they return with him, and that is at the end of the age, when he is due to return for his millennial reign. Lastly, when the northern kingdom is regathered into our land, Yashwa'al, they will never leave again, but they will dwell in perfect harmony and in safety. None will make them afraid. We have to understand the prophecies, otherwise we will be led astray due to the lack of wisdom in understanding the revelation of these prophecies, which is the truth. We have to be careful of the many contrary doctrines that are out there, deceiving many and leading them far away from the truth and from Alahayam. Then there are some people who are being tossed to and fro because they're looking for answers but in all the wrong places. They're looking here and there but not gaining any knowledge, as they're not calling on Rawak or Amath, the Spirit of Truth. The Spirit of Truth is not guiding them. He is not bringing his revelation to them. So they are being led far away from the truth. And most of the time, it is Alahayam himself who is doing this, because he already knows the state of these people's hearts. He already knows that they don't belong to him. Even though they might have been of the lineage, he knows their hearts. He knows who will worship him. But many of our brethren are out for gain. They're out to make merchandise of people. They want money. They want power. They want position. And these are dangerous things to lust after. In fact, we're not supposed to lust, but they lust after these things. And all that the devil is doing is leading them down the wrong path, the path of destruction. They're clinging to contrary doctrines, like the 144,000 are super soldiers. Many are given dreams. And they think because the dreams are telling them that they're going to have superpowers, that it means that they are part of the 144,000. Because if you go on the internet, you will find any and everything that you want to believe based on your deception. And one of the biggest deceptions here on the internet will be this 144,000 super soldiers. And many believe, because the devil gives them the dreams, that they're flying and they have this power and they can do this and they can do that, that they are part of the 144,000. All right, they have no understanding of the word of Alahayam. If you take yourself out of the equation because you want notoriety, if you take yourself out and submit yourself to Alahayam, then maybe he will show you the truth in the word. The truth is right there before us. It is right there. It is visible for all to see. However, the understanding is not there. And when Rawak ol Amaf is not showing us the truth, guess who comes in like a flood to show us his truth, which is darkness, which is deception. Satan comes in. Let's look at James chapter 1, verse 5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of Alahayam, who gives to all men liberally and upbraids not. So we want wisdom, we have to go to Alahayam. We have to pray and ask him. But here's the issue. When he gives us wisdom and he causes us to exercise his wisdom, it may seem foolish. It may seem like, oh, well, that I wasn't expecting that. I'm expecting a wow moment, but this is kind of like infantile. It's like, nah, this isn't wisdom. And that's the problem with us. We have this sense of greatness that we always want to walk in. And when we think of wisdom, we think that we gotta be like the wisest person on the earth, speaking poetically, speaking prophetically, speaking words that may seem too profound for the normal person to understand. It's like a person who went to university and they studied, I don't know, one of those higher subjects, like, I don't know, economics or whatnot, whatever. And they can have like that high conversation with people of their peers, with their peers. But they can't speak that language to the average man on the street, because the average man on the street, he doesn't really understand the terminologies and whatnot. So it kind of gives that person like, oh yeah, like I'm educated and you're not. Right? And that sense of greatness comes through pride. It comes through pride. And so you will find people that gravitate towards books and doing a lot of research and studies and whatnot. They have that sense of greatness within them because of pride. Now try to flip that over and try to go in the direction of Alahayam and his wisdom. Is going to be like foolishness, right? It's going to be like foolishness to a bookworm, to someone who is used to getting their answers from historians and from books, basically. All right? And so they gauge their wisdom on their knowledge and the experiences, their experience and the experiences of others. That's where they glean their wisdom from. But Alahayam now, he'll tell you to do the opposite. He'll tell you, okay, I want you to do it this way. And you'll be like, no, I'm not, I don't feel to do it that way because it doesn't make any sense. Well, that's the reason why he wants you to do it this way. That's the reason why he tells us to do things that are contrary to our thoughts, because his ways are higher than our ways and his thoughts than our thoughts. And when we obey him in the little things, then he starts adding to it, and then he starts improving and growing our wisdom. Right? And and the same thing with knowledge and understanding and discernment. All these are his wonderful qualities that he wants to give us liberally and abase them not. But we can't receive them because we want to do the things that others are doing. This is the way how I see my friends do it, and they look important, they sound important. I want to sound the same way too. I want to look important. But if you tell me to do things this way, I'm going to look stupid. I'm going to look foolish. When in fact, it's the opposite. It's the opposite, because the word that Alahayam gives us to speak to speak by faith, his words of wisdom will confound the wisest person on the earth. I don't know if we can understand that. It may seem a very simple word, but it will confound the wisest of the wise on the earth. If you doubt me, go to the four Gospels and read about Hamashiach. You know what was the common thought amongst the people? But he is a carpenter's son. How is it that he speaks words with such great authority and yet profound? Are these the words of a carpenter's son? How can that be? How can that be possible? They couldn't figure it out. And yet when Hamashiach spoke, it floored them, the lawyers, the scribes, the Pharisees, whomever that came before him. When they tried to trap him in his own word, by the way. They tried to trap him because they felt that they were so educated. They were knowledgeable in the law. So they came to him with the law that he gave their forefathers. And they tried to trap him. And what did he do? He just gave them a word back and left them scratching their heads and totally twisted in their minds. They couldn't figure it out. Like, how did, like, what, what? That moment. That's the wisdom of Alahayam. It will shut up the mouths of demons, the devils. All right? Because they will have to walk away. They had to walk away from from Hamashiach. Talking about the Pharisees. They had to walk away. They had no more words to come against him with. And that is the wisdom of Alahayam. And when we pray for that wisdom, we got to give up the other wisdom that we think we have. That other wisdom is foolishness. And it shall be given to him. So anyone that asks, Alahayam will give liberally. He will give you freely. He will give it to you abundantly. But you got to ask. And you got to let go of what you think you know. Verse 6, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavers is like the wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. And here's another thing. A lot of people, they don't have faith. Sometimes we pray for something and we expect it to happen immediately or in the manner in which we expect it to happen. And when it doesn't, then we start to doubt. Did I pray the wrong thing? Or Alahayam is not listening. But he hears and he responds. And when he does, it may not necessarily be the thing that you pray for. That's the thing. But however the situation resolves itself, we have to believe by faith and walk in that faith, because when he tells us to do something, it may not be the prayer that we prayed, but we still got to do it by faith. All right. And faith is something that it is not tangible. It is not physical. There's nothing that Alahayam can do to us, to give to us, to show us, to increase our faith. Our faith basically is us believing him, and not only believing in him, but being obedient to what he says to do. All right? That's faith in action. When we say we have faith, but then we doubt, then that's not faith. Because with faith, the opposite of that is doubt. And doubt leads to fears. And all those negative energies, those negative emotions, cancels out your faith. Or it makes you waver. All right? And he doesn't want us to be back and forth. Some people say, well, you put out the fleece and see what happens. He doesn't want us to do that. That was an extraordinary situation with Gideon. All right? Our situation is not like Gideon. So when we pray, we have to pray believing. When he's ready, he will do what he has to do. But he will answer us. But we need to ask him in faith. Amos chapter 8, verse 11. Behold, the days come, said Yahweh Alahayam, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of Yahweh. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of Yahweh, and shall not find it. And we are in this day, we are living in a time where there's a famine of hearing the words of Yahweh. Why? Because of the entities that are dwelling on the earth. The Satans have come down, and there's darkness upon this earth like never before. There are many agendas that are playing out, and many demonic activities going on. And the whole purpose is to quench the word of Alahayam, quench the fire of Alahayam, to prevent his people from receiving the words of Yahweh. Now, that's one aspect of that happening. The other aspect is that Alahayam is speaking only to those who will listen. And not many people are listening. Not many people, I'm speaking specifically of the southern kingdom. Not many of our people are listening to Alahayam. They're listening to other voices, but they're not listening to him. So they're in a famine and they don't even know. They're in a famine. And they're going from sea to sea. They're going from north to east. They're running to and fro, and they're seeking the word of Alahayam. But they're not finding it. They're not finding it. Why? Because they're looking in all the wrong places for the word of Alahayam. You don't need to run to and fro to find his word, to hear him. His spirit is everywhere. You just need to get on your knees. When you get on your knees and you're honest in your heart, he will respond to you. He will respond to all of us. All right? But although this is in reference to a time when Alahayam withdrew his words from our people, this is still relevant for us today. It is. Because the word of Alahayam is scarce now. Listen, truth is a bitter pill for people to swallow. A very, very bitter pill for people to swallow. People rather carry on, even though they're on the wrong path and doing the wrong things, and there's a pushback. There's resistance. Then they complain. Why is this so hard? Why am I being persecuted? All right? But when you try to explain the spiritual things that are happening behind the scene, because what we see is we see the physical and we hear the physical, but there is a spiritual aspect to our living. And when we're on the wrong path and we feel that we're being pushed back, that there's a resistance, there's persecution, there's lots of problems. We want to stay on the same path, but we want the problems to go away. How is that even possible? The reason why there are the problems, the persecution and whatnot that is happening is because you're on the wrong path. Because if you're on the right path and the enemy came at you, Alahayam will give you the wisdom and he will give you the strength to resist the devil and he will flee. He will give you his word, which will be your light to scatter the darkness. People don't want that. They want to stay exactly where they are, but they want the situation to change. It's not going to work that way. And this is what we're living in today. You speak. Okay, let's look at our forefathers. Our forefathers punished the prophets, killed them when they came with reprimands, when they came with prophecies to warn the people that you are on the wrong path. You're doing wicked deeds. And Alahayam is angry. Put away your pagan worship and return to Alahayam. Repent. Now, instead of listening to the prophets, what did they do? They stoned them, they killed them, whatever. They destroyed the prophets who brought the word of Alahayam in those days. It's no different today. Our people are resisting Ruach HaKadosh, and even the ones that he's speaking through, they're resisting the truth, and the truth is light. I just did a 3-part study called The 3 Days of Darkness, and it explains a lot about darkness. It explains about the darkness where Alahayam dwells, and then it explains the darkness where the devils dwell. 2 different kinds of darkness. And when you find yourself over in Satan's territory, you're going to encounter a whole mess of problems. And the whole idea is to get out of that territory and back onto the path where Alahayam can protect you. But people don't want to hear that. They resist the truth because of pride, because of fear, because of ignorance, what have you. They resist the light because the truth is a light. And the light shines in the darkness, and it shines to show you the path. People don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And the very same way our forefathers killed the prophets, today our people are doing the same thing, but not with stones, not with weapons, but with their lips. With their lips. Now, this is our current situation right now. Many are running to other people and to other doctrines to understand the mind of Alahayam, to understand his prophecies. This is bringing about a severe famine of hearing the words of Yahweh, because they are seeking truth from a man and not from Ruach ol Amath. Why? Because these people that are preaching false doctrines are tickling the ears of people, whether Gentiles of non-Yashrael descent or Gentiles of Yashrael descent. Ears are being tickled. Flesh is being massaged. People walking away feeling good about themselves because they're able to continue on in sin. They don't feel convicted. They feel appreciated. No one else can lead you to the truth but Him. Like I said, truth is a bitter pill to swallow. So it is with the understanding of the end times events. We need to read the scriptures for ourselves and allow Ruach HaKadosh to give us His revelation. Then we will be in the truth and in His light. According to the verses just read, we see that during the final day of judgment, Alahayam will send his angels to proclaim the gospel one last time. He will send an angel to the inhabitants on the earth. He's not sending the 144,000. He's not sending any of the 12 tribes. He is sending an angel with the everlasting gospel to preach to the inhabitants on the earth. And this will be their last chance to make their final decision. Who will they serve? This is to give the inhabitants on the earth, those who had not surrendered to the beast and taken his mark or worshipped him, one last chance to choose Alahayam. Because those that surrendered to the beast, they've taken his mark or worshipped him, taken his name, they're condemned automatically. This first angel's proclamation will be in every tongue and language of the people on the earth. Everyone will understand what the angel will be saying. And no matter where the people are on the earth, everyone will have an opportunity to hear the full gospel for themselves. So no matter where, no matter who, everyone will hear the gospel for themselves. No one can say, I did not know, I did not understand. Everyone will hear it. And they will hear the angel. In whatever language they speak, they will hear the angel with the good news. Now they are hearing the words of Alahayam straight from his angels. No more men being used, as this will prove to the inhabitants once and for all that Alahayam is real and his judgments are real. And if they refuse to believe in his words spoken by the angelic host, then they will be without excuse at the end, when they will come before the white throne. Okay. They will have no excuse because an angel will preach the gospel. Not a man. You think there are going to be churches around with pastors, evangelists? No. The only religions on the earth will be those, whatever is remaining of the whore. In whatever city, her city is destroyed. But true worship of Alahayam will be on the ground. For the Gentiles. And then the ones that refuse to worship, this will be their opportunity to make a conscious decision. Otherwise, they'll be destroyed when the plagues come. This is before the 7 final plagues. Because those that are not sealed of Alahayam to be his, talking about the Gentiles now, they will have to endure the 7 plagues that are coming. And this is his mercy that Alahayam is extending to the Gentile nations. Alahayam will reveal himself to everyone left on the earth. He will reveal his heart and his mind in order to warn everyone that if they choose to worship other gods, then they will be condemned. Even if they choose not to worship anyone, they will be condemned. How could you see all these things happening and still not want to believe him? You've seen how the southern kingdom were taken up. In fact, they endured the 3 days of darkness. They've seen the southern kingdom being taken up. They've seen the northern kingdom being regathered. They've seen the destruction of the whore. They hear the gospel being preached by an angel, and yet they still want to deny him. Well, yeah, you will be condemned after that. There's no hope for anyone who decides, well, no, I still don't want to worship anyone. There's no hope for you because you have no faith and you don't want to believe. Remember that this is the perpetual day that will occur on the earth when the northern kingdom makes it to our land. So all of this is happening during the perpetual day that will be on the earth. The sun has stopped moving. Time has stopped. Time will stop in trumpet number 6. And right after that, the northern kingdom entered into the land. And the 7th trumpet was blown. All right? Time has stopped. There's no more sun going up, coming up, rising up, and going down. None of that. No night. It is a perpetual day that Alahayam is going to bring about his judgments against the Gentile nations. So within this perpetual day is what Alahayam calls the hour of judgment, his time of judgment. If there's no sun going down and there's no more time, how can there be an hour? Well, it is in reference to his time of judgment that is within this perpetual day that he has brought about. That's occurring on the earth, as a matter of fact. It is going to be occurring on the earth because eventually there'll be no more sun. There'll be no more night on the earth. When Hamashiach comes, he's the sun. He's the light on the earth. Okay. It will occur for the whore as well as those on the earth until his final judgments are poured out upon the earth from the 7 vials. Even after these 7 vials are poured out, there will be one last battle on the earth, and that will occur when Satan, who is Gadriel, is released from the abyss. But we know how that will turn out, and when we get to that chapter, then we will look deeper at this event. It is for this reason why Alahayam is merciful to the Gentile nations, the ones that did not persecute his people, Yashraal. He has given them their chance to choose him and to worship him. There's no other way to receive eternal life except to choose him by believing in the good news about Hamashiach. Hamashiach is the good news. The same gospel that the 12 tribes of Yashraal had to believe in order to obtain their inheritance of eternal life, now the Gentile nations are being instructed in the same manner. There will not be 2 ways into the kingdom, only one for all, as there's one law for all, both Yashraal and Gentiles of non-Yashraal descent. Now, right now we're hearing Christians talking about the rapture and how Christians are not subject to the wrath of Alahayam. They're not subject to the Great Tribulation, and before the Great Tribulation comes about, then God, their God, is going to rapture them off this earth. All right. They also carry on to say, and this is another thing that has me very puzzled. They talk about the God of Israel. The God of Israel will save them. Talking about the fakers in our land, not us, the fakers in our land, that the judgments that are coming, the great tribulation, the time of Jacob's trouble and all these different ones are for them because they rejected the Messiah. All right? And for this reason, they're the ones that are going to go through the great tribulation and even the wrath of Alahayam if they choose not to believe. So you see how Christian doctrine has twisted everything, where they don't have to do anything to receive what is rightfully ours, by the way. They just have to say a sinner's prayer and wait for a rapture to enter into heaven. That's all they need to do. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to eat clean. They don't need to obey the laws of Alahayam or his commandments, because they're not meant for them. It is meant for the Jewish people. They will tell you straight to your face. And seriously too, because they believe it with all their hearts, that the laws and the commandments are not meant for them as Christians because they're under grace. It is only meant for the Jewish people. Talking about the fakers in our land. And this is the reason why many of the Gentiles are going to perish, because they are walking in so much false doctrine. I don't know how they're going to be able to come up and out of it all. There are few that believe that the Negroes are the true Yashraal, the true people of the book. Very few. But the greater majority have replaced Christianity, the Christians, the church. They've replaced the people of Alahayam, his chosen people, with themselves. They've even gone as far to say that the woman that flees from the dragon, yes, that is Israel, but the child that she birthed, it is them. You see how twisted their doctrines are? Completely twisted to fit their narrative, to fit the deception that they're walking in. And Alahayam is not going to say anything to them to bring them into the light, because he gave them the sun, moon, and stars to worship. He wants nothing really to do with them. His interest is strictly with the righteous remnant of the 12 tribes. And when he is ready, he will see who is left of the Gentiles that believe it, that will believe in him, that have put away their pagan gods. They think that one law, the law, first of all, the entire law, because the law is made up of laws. We just use the singular word, but it's speaking of the laws that he's given to us, the laws about eating clean, what foods we need to eat. All right? And who we ought to worship, how we ought to worship, all the different things that he has guided us. And yet you have these Christians out there eating pork and loving it. And yet they think with the same mouth that they can say a prayer that will cause them to be raptured. There's some out there that are teaching that you don't need to even be, what's the word they use? You could say a prayer, but you don't really have to believe. As long as you say the prayer, you're safe. You could be out there living like a whore. As long as you say the prayer, you're safe. You're going to be raptured. Just say the prayer. That's all you need. That's your ticket to the kingdom. So as far as the Christians are concerned, every rapscallion that they can lie to bring into their midst can enter into the kingdom of heaven. What they definitely don't know what the kingdom of heaven is, and they certainly don't know who our Heavenly Father is. Speaking of us, Yashraal, they don't know the Alahayam of Yashraal. All right? They don't know him, because if they did, they would be thinking differently. But they're thinking with, well, they're walking on in darkness, and all their doctrines are deception. They're deceived. And it's a deep, deep deception that's been passed on from generation to generation. Because they figure they don't need to do anything. Their own righteousness is sufficient to get them into the kingdom. Whereas all they're talking about the Jewish people. Oh, they need to believe in the Messiah in order to make it into the kingdom. So like deceived. There's so much deception with Christianity. All the doctrines. I mean, if anyone is listening to this word, if you're in a church, come out of the church. The church is a pagan religious house. And all the things that they teach you, it's all pagan. And all it's going to do is destroy even our people that are trapped. They may not be going to a church, but they're still trapped in pagan doctrines of Christianity. Trapped. Okay. Let's look at Shemawath chapter 12 verse 48. And this now should quench any person's thoughts that there's one law for Yashraal and another law for the Gentiles. And when a stranger shall sojourn with you, and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land. Here, this is with our forefathers when they were in the wilderness, when they left Matzah-Rayam, there was a mixed multitude that came out with them. They had foreigners amongst themselves. All right. Here, Alahayam is instructing those males, the foreigners, if they wanted to keep Passover to Yahweh, they had to be circumcised. And once they're circumcised, now they are as one that is born in the land. Meaning now they are of Yashraal. Right? Now, I want to touch a little bit about circumcision. I can't just see this and not say it. All right? Circumcision and uncircumcised Yashraal. Okay, let me change that around. To be in covenant with Alahayam, whether it is our forefathers or whether today calls for circumcision of the flesh. There's no two ways about it. You cannot claim that you are Yashraal. You're of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And when you look down, I'm speaking to the males. And when you look down, you look like a Gentile. The circumcision was given to Abraham, our forefather, as a sign of the covenant. And he said it is for all generations. Throughout all the generations, we are to be circumcised. And you mothers out there that birth sons that have not circumcised them, you're disobeying the law of Alahayam. And you're going to bring his wrath against not only you, but the child. He's going to come with his wrath because we're living in disobedience. I know some people say, well, Paul says he doesn't care about the circumcision of the flesh, it's the circumcision of the heart, and blah, 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 whatever. Paul, I do not subscribe to his epistles, first of all. You know how some people say that Hamashiach was a plant of the Romans? Well, I believe that either Paul was a plant of the Romans, or he mysteriously materialized as an apostle. Because the things that we read in his in his epistles contradicts the laws that was given to us, they were given to our forefathers, that we have to keep throughout eternity, for all eternity, throughout our generations. So yes, if you want to be a part of the tribes, you have to be circumcised. And the same goes for the Gentiles. But this was during the time in the wilderness I'm speaking about the Gentiles. I'm not talking about our people. Our people have to be circumcised. You see, they like to walk around with fringes on, and the 6-pointed star on their chest, the star of Rempham. Right? They like to walk around with their heads tied up. But the external works they want to do. But to walk in obedience, to be in covenant with him, and yes, we can still be in covenant with him in the lands of our captivity, because he said he will be to us like a small sanctuary, a little sanctuary. He will still come to us as long as we are obedient to him. So here, when the 12 tribes were in the wilderness and they had the strangers amongst them, maybe they married, the women married men that were not of the tribes, or they had people that left with them. In order for them to keep the Passover, they had to be circumcised, and then they were as one born in the land. They became Yashraal. They were no longer Gentile. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. And he's talking about the Passover. Verse 49, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, meaning of the lineage of Yashraal, of Abraham, and unto the stranger that sojourns among you. Now, saying that, let me say this. This was when they left Goshen on the first Exodus. But Alahayam is not going to tolerate any more strangers amongst us anymore. So you can't go and marry a stranger. Okay, you're a woman, you marry a stranger, a foreigner, and you tell him, well, he says here in the world, if you get circumcised, then you be as one born in the land. No, that does not apply. It does not apply. No. He told us not to marry into other nations. And those people that have married into other nations and have children by them, their inheritance, they're in danger of having their inheritance cut off. I know this is off topic, but it has to be said. It has to be spoken. But we'll figure it all out when the 3 days of darkness comes. And when you find yourself, well, whatever he does with you. But when you, well, I'm not going to go into that arena. That's another topic altogether. All right? But people want to be wrong and strong. He says not to marry into other nations. because he's not regathering a multitude anymore. He is regathering the righteous remnant of the fourth generation. It's in the scriptures of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. There's nothing there that talks about Gentiles. He's not regathering any mixed multitudes, any mixed couples either. Only homeborn, fourth generation. All right? Okay. Leviticus chapter 24, verse 22. And I know that's going to stick in a lot of people's crow. Why? Because a lot of our brethren have gone and married women or men from other nations, have children by them, and they can't let them go. Why? Because they're hoping to wipe themselves out. That's the reason why our brethren and our sisters, they're going to marry these other nations. They don't want to be Negroes anymore. So they live vicariously through their children because their children look not too much like them, mostly like the spouse, because they don't have the same quality hair or the same skin color, what have you. And if the children go and marry into other nations, then it's even better for them, they're thinking, because now they can wipe themselves out. And I've seen this happening. I'm not speaking anything that I haven't seen. I've witnessed this. And they're happy that way because they don't love themselves. Yes, we've been persecuted all the day long for generations, but that's because of our disobedience. All right? There's an inheritance waiting for us that's going to be glorious, but it has conditions attached to it. And if you're already married into another nation, well, I don't know what else to say to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You need to sit down. You need to get on your knees and pray and ask the Father how to deal with this situation. Because that's a very tough decision that you're going to have to make. And I've already heard people say, well, I love my husband. I love my wife. I'm not going to leave them. Okay, fine. Hold on to your husband because, anyways, I'm not going to say anything more. No. Let me read on. Leviticus chapter 24, verse 22. You shall have one manner, which is mashapat, or judgment of law. So one manner of law as well for the stranger as for one of your own country. For I'm Yahweh Alahayam, your Alahayam. So only one law. So you have, they had strangers amongst them. They had to obey the same law that Yashua had to obey. Ba'madabar, there's the book of Numbers, chapter 15, verse 15. One ordinance shall be both for you of the congregation and also for the stranger that sojourns with you. An ordinance forever in your generations. As you are, so shall the stranger be before Yahweh. One law and one manner shall be before you, and for the stranger that sojourns with you. You shall have one law for him that sins through ignorance, both for him that is born among Habanai ol Yashraal, and for the strangers that sojourns among them. So one law for everyone. One law. Basically, that's all he's saying. One law. And there are no variations of the law because this person is Gentile and they're not really under the law, but they're under grace. No. One law for everyone. It doesn't matter who they are. And this was back in the wilderness. Now it comes to the Gentiles on the earth, the inhabitants on the earth. And Alahayam is going to instruct them in the same way. That's why he preached the everlasting gospel to them and gave them the instructions that they have to worship him and give him the glory. That's the same instruction that was given to Yashraal, the 12 tribes. They have to abide by the same instructions. There's no two laws, no two ways. And they have a choice. Either they do it or they don't. He's not going to force their hands. He's going to show himself to them, and he's going to show himself mightily, and he's going to send his angels, and if they obey, good. If they don't, well, you just cast them away. Many Christians are out there teaching and believing that they're exempt from the laws and statutes of Alahayam, saying that they're under grace. And besides, the laws are meant for Israel. These teachings are the deceptions laid out in the many false doctrines of the many denominations of many religions out there. This is the reason why those who will survive the beast of the end times and reject their evil mandates will be given the opportunity to choose to worship Alahayam. They will see for themselves that the only other option will be to serve the beast. For there will be no middle ground between him, meaning Alahayam, and them, the beast. Okay, so let's look at verse 3 now of Revelation chapter 15 revised. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So the angel, this is a second angel now. He's going to have a total of 3 angels that will preach to the inhabitants on the earth. So this one is letting the inhabitants on the earth know that the city of Babylon is fallen, is being taken down. And the reason why she was taken down is because she caused the people to worship pagan gods and to do some abominable things. All right. Now we have another angel proclaiming the destruction of Babylon, the great city, proclaiming the evils that she committed amongst all the nations of the earth. The inhabitants on the earth are receiving the good news, and this will serve 2 purposes. On one hand, those who suffered under this horror will be greatly relieved. Yes, remember what I said, that the captains, the shipmasters, with all their goods and goodies that they brought to the whore, they brought it to the port, the city, the whore, to sell their merchandise there. Where do you think they got them from? They stole them from the villages and the cities and the farms and whatnot, because they're still going to have those kinds of things going on. People need to eat, so they're going to grow their own food. They're going to search for resources. And what these people are going to do, they're going to be like modern day pirates. And they're going to go and steal and destroy and even enslave some of the people, because the ships need slaves to row, to row, R-O-W, to row the ships. They're going to use oars like the olden days before they had machinery, like engines and stuff. So they're going to be using oars. Because remember, we were talking about one land mass, so they're going from one wherever their port is, and they're just heading towards the port of the whore, wherever that is. Well, we know it's somewhere in Europe, Italy area, yes. But they enslaved some of the people, and they sold the rest as slaves to the whore. And not only did they sell some of the people, they kidnapped people, men, women, and children, to keep for their own sacrifices and rituals, but also to sell to the whore as sacrifices. That's why it talks about when they were given the long list of things that she used to buy from them. It included the souls of men, slaves and souls of men. The souls of men were the sacrifices that they that she bought, but she didn't buy them as sacrifices, but she bought them as people to be used in her sacrifices to her devil. All right? And for her to sell to other people as sacrifices to her devil. She was this entity is the most wicked entity that this earth is going to see. Yes, the NWO is grotesquely wicked as well, but it is taking it to a whole new level of wickedness. Well, I shouldn't say level up, but level down. All right, this is no wonder Alahayam like poured out his wrath against this entity and burned her to the ground. And all of them that lived deliciously with her in the city and outside the city. Unbelievable. But yes, so getting back to the writing here. So those people were suffering under the whore for these reasons. They're being robbed and they themselves were being kidnapped, or their family members and what have you. So they'll be relieved to hear Babylon the Great is fallen. Is fallen. That great city is fallen. So that's good news as well. And secondly, if after hearing this good news from the angel, I will not lead the Gentile nations to Alahayam to worship him, then they will be doomed for certain destruction. Like I said before, the angels are going to tell the inhabitants on the earth, here is Alahayam, worship him. He is the creator of the heavens and the earth. He is the creator of even the fountains, meaning the waters. He is creator. Reverence him, fear him. Look at what he has done. He has destroyed Babylon because Babylon is fallen. No human took down Babylon. Okay, yes, Alahayam caused the empire to turn against her and use the agents of Satan to burn her down, to rob her and then burn her down. But it was Alahayam who used them. There were instruments used by Alahayam. So he was the one, because no human can cause these wicked entities to turn against their own. But Alahayam can, and he will, and he did, as we read on here. So that's why the angel is proclaiming, hey, I'm sure they had their little armies set up, the Gentile nations. They might have a little what do you call them now? Like veterans that have their weapons or whatnot. Well, they wouldn't have knives they wouldn't have guns or anything because those things are finished. But they, make their weapons and they would come and attack. They probably had their own little okay, the name is gone clean out of my head, but little armies, their own little armies that will try to fight against the system. I mean, we see that happening today too, right? But they call them protesters, and they have the rioters, but these ones now will break out in secret and then run and but how effective is that? Because they're fighting against an unseen force. All right, that's running the world. The only person that can take down these systems will be Alahayam, not by human strength. So no matter how much of those people rise up to fight against the system, they're either going to be destroyed or they're not really going to do much of anything. Yes, you might kill one or two people, but it's not going to do any damage to the kingdom, to the kingdom of darkness. And the reason why I know this is because when you watch certain events taking place in this earth and you read the comments of the people, you know what they say? Oh yeah, let's get together and let's take down this system. I got my guns ready. I got my weapons ready. Let them come knocking at my door. All these different things that people, and these are the Gentiles saying this. All right. So that is in their minds to do. And I know they will do it once everything is up and running, and they don't want to follow along, which is good for them, but they're going to try to take matters in their own hands. But it's not going to come to anything. So when the Gentiles hear that Babylon is fallen, right, it should do something. It should trigger. It should trigger their desire to want to worship Alahayam. That's what it should do. Okay. Alahayam will exact his punishment on anyone who lived deliciously with this whore, who will be partaking in her pagan worship with all the abominations required to satisfy this whore. You think that any and everyone can go on and buy merchandise from this whore? You got to be one of her worshippers. All right? The wine of the wrath of her fornication is showing us that she is storing up all her wickedness in her cup. Wickedness that she made those who align themselves with her to drink, to do all the wickedness in the form of her pagan rituals and sacrifices, just like today. Do you know today, in order for you to make it in this world, you got to do it by a handshake? And when I say a handshake, I'm talking about the secret handshake, because it would tell the person who's shaking your hand that you are one of them. And to become one of them, you got to enter into their society, their secret society, and perform some very wicked deeds, which will include sacrifices, drinking and eating of human flesh and blood. Drinking human blood, eating human flesh. And it can even get worse than that, but I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to put that thought in your head. But there are even worse things that they have to do. And here's another thing that we need to consider. When you see certain people being discredited, famous people, this person caught, with a prostitute, for example, this married president caught with a prostitute, or caught having an affair, or this person was arrested by the IRS because they didn't pay their taxes, and all these different things that certain persons on this earth, whether they're in the music industry, whether they're from Hollywood, whether they are into sports, whatever industry that these people are in, and you see them being shamed in the news because of whatever so-called event that has taken place, that according to morals, our morals is quite disgusting. A man caught with another man, or whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. They conjure up all kinds of stories to shame this person. Do you know that shaming is part of their ritual once they want to move up the ladder of their society that they're in? And they got some of our people that get very personal, that get very offended when they see these things happening. Blah, blah, blah. And they have an opinion. They have an opinion. What they don't even know is that this is part of a satanic ritual where this person, in order to move up another level, They have to be shamed. Remember, for a while, suddenly all these women were coming out and claiming that they were harassed, and I'm using that word very vaguely, by this, whether this it was an actor or singer or what have you. They were harassed. Suddenly these women from the 70s are coming out, and this person is arrested, and then they're brought to trial, and you never see the trial. All you see is drawings of the trial, and then this person disappears from sight. You see them wearing the orange, and orange, by the way, is their color. You see them wearing the orange jumper, and you automatically think that they are in jail, right? No. No. Anyways, going off topic, but I just wanted to say that these are some of the rituals that these people go through in order to please the devils, their fathers, the Satans. If you want to move up higher in the ranks, you got to get shame. And the more shame you get, the higher you can rise up in the ranks. All right? So when you see people being shamed, and these are famous people, don't feel sorry for them. They're just being moved up in the ranks. And they're being moved up to pull the wool over your eyes. And it's a job well done for pulling the wool over your eyes. Remember when they had that thing with, in fact, there's so many stories. I'm not even going to call any names. So many stories. And people had opinions. Oh, this person this and this person that. That West guy, remember him? They were trying to shame him. Why? Because it was his time to move up the ranks. And people had an opinion. As a matter of fact, people that claimed that they were all brethren called him Moses. And then the other one, I think he was in sports, spoke out, and he got a bit of it too, because it was his time to move up. It was time for promotion. And people had an opinion and called him Aaron. Can you imagine the nerve of our people? You don't know them no more than a fly on a wall. And you have an opinion thinking that these people that, even though, well, just because they might be Negro, oh well, they're black. I'm not calling them Negro. They look black, and you think that they're us. And they're actors on the scene to entertain us. And we are well entertained because people have an opinion as soon as someone who looks black is in the news. And what people don't know and understand is that they're earning their next level up. They're being promoted. This is what the whore does. The whore is not quite here yet, but her evidence is still here. Her works is here, has always been here. It never left. It may have gone on the ground for a little bit, but we're seeing more and more of this whore rising up, coming to the surface. All these pagan religions now that are on the surface, the worship of self, the worship of animals, the worship of trees, all this is part of her. All these other religions, they're all part of her. So she may not be here as a body yet, as an entity yet, but all the players are being set up. The agendas, all the different things are being played out. Thankfully, we will not be here to see her rise up in the fullness of who she is, pure wickedness. So this is what people have to do to satisfy the devils, including this whore when she comes when she rises up. These are the ones who will be next on the list of Alahayam, where he will destroy those who fornicated according to the whore's instruction, no matter where they will be living. So he's coming after every pagan worshiper that will be on the earth. Psalms 11. Sorry, let me say that again. Psalms 11 verse 5. Yahweh tries the righteous, but the wicked and him that loves violence, his soul hates. Upon the wicked he shall rain snares, fire and brimstone. And that's what's waiting for anyone who will not worship him, including our brethren too. Fire and brimstone. And a horrible tempest, says he will walk, his spirit. And this will be the portion of their cup. For the righteous, Yahweh loves righteousness. His countenance does behold the upright. So there, at the end of the day, there will be two kinds of people. Either you will be walking in the righteousness of Alahayam, or you will not. You'll be walking in self-righteousness or unrighteousness. And if you're doing any of those two, you will face the wrath of Alahayam. Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, verse 7. Babylon has been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunk of her wine. Therefore, the nations are mad. We went through this scripture already, and we've discussed it. But I just put it here again for you to see that Alahayam. Okay, let me finish read 8 and then we're going to discuss it. Verse 8. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her. Take balm for her pain. If so be, she may be healed. So we see that Babylon has been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand. And basically what Alahayam wants us to see and understand, that all the things that is happening on the earth, whether past, present, or future, are things that he permit. Things that he will permit. Why? Because not everyone belongs to him. Not everyone wants to belong to him. So Babylon was a way to sift the nations. Alahayam used Babylon to sift the nations. Those that partake of her delicacies belongs to her. They belong to her. And who refuse belong to him. All right. So from the very beginning, Alahayam had proclaimed judgment against Babylon, even when it was an empire, during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. Now, this is what I was saying in the beginning, that from the very beginning, from way back through the prophets, Jeremiah, and even Yeshaiah, that Alahayam used them to proclaim judgment against Babylon the empire. Now, the very same judgments that he proclaimed against the empire is proclaimed against the whore. Why? Because they're one and the same, just a different era. It's the same devil, the same Satan. The evil qualities which the Babylonian empire possessed, so the same qualities this whore will possess. And not just that of the Babylonian empire, but all the empires after it. So the Medes and Persians, the Greek and the Roman. All the qualities that those and the gods and whatnot, the goddesses that they served, will fall under this entity, this whore. This is the reason why it will be the center for pagan religion, as all religions from every spectrum of life will be found in her. Alahayam will take this whore down, and never again will she rise up, for the Satan who possesses her will be cast into the lake of fire. So when her city is burning, it means the Satan is in his lake of fire, in the lake of fire. Now let's look at verse 4 and 5 of Revelation chapter 15, revised. And the third angel followed then, saying with a loud voice, now this is the third angel, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Alahayam, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, which is his wrath. And he, meaning the person who has taken the mark or worship the beast, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone. That's the lake of fire, in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. That is Hamashiach. Now, this third angel is proclaiming to the inhabitants of the earth judgment against those who will be worshippers of the beast and who took its mark. This is the final day of judgment for the earth. This is that perpetual day. Either the people, those who did not take the mark of the beast, will believe or they will not believe. Now, before we read on, I want to emphasize that the worshippers of the beast will be those that have the bloodline of the Nephilim. They're the ones that are running the show as we speak. They're the agents of Satan. They're not going to take the mark because they already have the bloodline. So they will be worshippers of the beast. And just like in the days of Nah, when Alahayam destroyed the Nephilim from off the face of the earth, he destroyed them, their bodies, but their spirits still roam the earth and they still brought back their technology and their wickedness. They are not, there's no salvation. When I say salvation, that's the wrong word. There's no judgment before the throne, the white throne, for these devils, for these unclean spirits, because that's what they became, unclean spirits. Why? Because they are hybrid species. All right? The worshippers of the beast and his image are those. Let's start with the worshippers of the beast. They're the ones that have the bloodline of the Nephilim. One. All right? The worshippers of the beast and his image, the image of the beast, which would be like some sort of a statue that can speak, they're the ones that have the bloodline. So naturally, they are wicked. There's no goodness in them. There's no light. They are perfectly black on the inside, perfectly evil on the inside. Now you have another aspect of those that will worship the beast and his image, are the ones that have allowed themselves to be transformed to be like the beast and, well, his image. Remember, I showed you an image of the Baphomet that was part man, part woman, part beast. There are some people on the earth right now that are changing who they were born as to be something else. They are also worshippers of the beast. Because when you start changing yourself and you start cutting and splicing, what is going to happen is that you cannot revert back to your normal person. Because the things that you need to be who you were born as were cut away. So now you're neither here nor there. And that is a worshiper of the beast. And why that is called a worshiper of the beast? Because you will have to hear from the Satans to do this wickedness. You will have to hear from the Satans to do this wickedness. And your mind, you are no longer in the image of Alahayam, the way how he created man and woman. You are now in another image. the image of the beast. You have the beast, which is the empire that these Nephilim offspring will worship. And then you have the image, which will look androgynous. The image of the beast will look androgynous. And then there'll be those that the way how they show themselves to be worshippers of his image. That's why he said specifically the image is because they too change their image from the image that they were born with to be like this beast image. And that's why these people that are out there cutting off their bits, trying to look like someone else, they're doomed for destruction. No, the ones that just cross, if you know what I mean, they cross and they wear different clothing and just put on makeup, and well, there's hope for them because they didn't do any changes. They didn't cut away anything. They still maintain what they have. All they did is they put on clothing that is different and put on makeup. That's fine. Well, no, sorry. I shouldn't say it's fine. It's not fine. But what I'm trying to express is that there's hope for them. They're just lost. But there's hope for them. But when you go one step further in trying to change your image to be someone who you were not born to be, now you're in the devil's playland. And there's no coming back from there. There's no coming back. You go and you cut off your bits. There is no coming back. And then on top of that, you start taking stuff to help change you into that other gender. How can you come back from that? I've already said, and I've said this before, I've watched videos of those that were, they started before their voices began to change, talking about the males. That time. I have to be very cryptic because this algorithm is, you have to be very careful. And they go and they take the stuff, the meds and whatnot, to block their development, the natural development to become men and women. They block that. And they take the opposite meds in the form of meds so that they can develop to be the opposite gender. And what a lot of them are doing after a few years of living this way, and not only did they take the meds, but they also cut their bits. The men cut their bits off, the women cut their chest off. And then they take the stuff. And then what? Some years later, they're still not happy. And they have this rude awakening that I've made a major mistake. Some of them are going bald, having they call it that bald pattern that some men have. Those that were born as women, girls, they're developing that because they transition themselves. They have the male voice and they're growing facial hair and body hair. How are you going to change that? How are you going to revert that? And it's the opposite for those that were born men, boys. All right? How are you going to come back from there? Because now you're psychologically damaged. You're physically damaged. You're sexually damaged. You're emotionally damaged. You're damaged all the way around. But people that go that far is because they, even though they may not come right out and say, yes, I'm a devil worshiper, you will have to be hearing from the devils to do this kind of work on yourself. Those people will have to hear from the demons and they surrender to the devils. So they are the worshippers of the image. And then you have the last ones are the ones who took the mark. That's the toxon, where they become hybrids. They're no longer fully human. They're human plus human. And, well, they'll be like an android. All right? Machinery on the inside, flesh looking on the outside. And they will have no control of their thoughts or their actions. That's why it talks about the mark in the forehead or in their hand. It speaks of their thoughts and their actions. So they cannot worship Alahayam when they're hybrid. Alahayam destroyed the hybrids from off the earth that were called the Nephilim. And you will do the same thing for anyone who goes after this beast. And it is this beast that is in operation today that is pushing his image, androgyny. That's what the anti-Messiah is going to be, androgynous. And that's why they're now giving people operations free to go and do these things. Think about it. They're offering people in the military free operations to go and get this thing done, to get themselves transitioned. They're now telling children, you can come to the school and talk to whom, whether it's the principal or whatnot, your teacher, tell them your desire, you want to be transitioned, and they will set up the appointment for you to go and get the necessary things done. Children, Now tell me if this is not the image of the beast. Changing people to be in the image of the beast. All right. Let's read on. Even though they will see the miracles of the angels proclaiming the judgments of Alahayam, many will still not believe because their hearts will be hardened, just like Para'o. Alahayam already knows who belongs to him, even the Gentiles. Those who do not belong to him, he will harden their hearts in disbelief. And that's why so many of the Gentiles, so many people, whether it's our brethren or because some of our brethren have fallen into this trap of changing who they are. And then there are many of the Gentiles who have fallen into this trap of changing who they are. We have looked at the three ways in which those who will submit to the beast, the earthly agents of the Satans will be his worshippers to worship the beast and the image of the beast empire, while the other condemned persons are those who take the toxon, the devil juice, because they believe the beast and their narrative. And I already explained androgyny. All right. This is the other way in which the beast will receive total submission from many people, and they will be condemned because of their belief, because they believe the beast and not Alahayam. They receive the toxon internally, which will affect their actions and their thoughts, because they will be transformed into another species, unable to act and think freely. They become a Borg. They're hooked up to a hub, so to speak, and they will have a beehive mentality. So what everyone is thinking, they will think too. They speaking the agents will totally be in control of the beast. Sorry, let me read that again. They will totally be in control of the beast, meaning the beast, the beast empire, the devils, the Satans, whatever you want to call them. They will be the ones that are in control of those who have taken the toxin. All right? Spiritually and physically. So because Alahayam has cut them off automatically, as soon as they say, yes, I'm going to go and take this toxin, and they go and they take it, they're cut off. So now they are servants of Satan, and Satan will have full control of them. There's no going back once you've taken it. It is for this reason why Alahayam will condemn anyone who worships the beast and take their toxin. I know some people are out there telling others, oh no, this is not the mark of the beast. It's okay. This is the precursor. There's no such thing in the Bible as a precursor. Oh, all you have to do is go and detox yourself. Go walk barefooted outside and that will draw all the chemicals, all the toxin out. No, because it is in on a cellular level. How are you going to draw things out that's literally knitting itself in your D-N-A-? How are you going to draw that out? It's programming even your D-N-A. How are you going to reverse that? By walking on the bare ground, by taking a bath in Epsom salts. And I'm just using that as an example. How are you going to reverse what is being done to you on the inward part chemically and on a genetic level? How are you going to reverse that? You're doomed. It's done. What's going to happen is they're going to come up with it's going to be the same toxin, but they're going to come up with a second narrative that will force people, no, you don't have a choice. You're going to either take it or we're going to destroy you. And even the ones that have already taken it previously, they're going to still have to line up to take it again. And they will gladly run for it. Because they're already part of the beast system. They don't know it. And that's why some of them act crazy. Those that worship the beast, as in the earthly agents, will have the bloodline of the fallen, the bloodline of their children called the Nephilim. This is the reason why they are so inherently wicked, with no thought or fear of Alahayam. Their mission is to corrupt and or to destroy at all costs, even at the cost of their lives, because they believe their fathers, the Satans, that they will inherit utopia at the end of their destruction of the earth. Or if they lose their lives. If they lose their life, they go to utopia. If they help the Satans to destroy the earth, they can reform it to be like utopia again. So they think that they can't lose. All they're heading for is utopia. The wine of the wrath of Alahayam is showing us that he too has been storing up his wine in his cup, and that is judgment. He is allowing this judgment to come to its ripeness and fullness, fully saturated with his destruction. And by the time he is ready to pour out his cup, it will be without mixture. There will be no judgment at the white throne, looking for their names in the Lamb's book of life, as their names will be blotted out. So that is the wine in his cup that is without mixture. Well, once he has condemned you and destroyed you, there's no looking for your name in the Lamb's book of life. All right? It will be purely destruction like he did with the whore. The judgment had been set a long time ago. Therefore, destruction will come suddenly to devastate these people and condemning them in the lake of fire for all eternity before the angels and before Hamashiach. So he's not bringing any of these ones that he's condemned before him, where they will see whether or not their names are still written in the Lamb's book of life or blotted out. This is immediate condemnation. When you see that terminology, without mixture, That means that you are condemned eternally. With mixture, you're judged, you die, but he's still going to allow you to come before him to see whether or not you manage to eke your way in by any chance. All right? And I'll give you an example. Now, you have some people, they're not going to take the mark of the beast, they're not going to worship the beast, they're not going to walk in obedience, they're going to try to live off the grid, so to speak. Well, there'll be no grid, but they're going to live in secret. All right? And they will try to help others that are trying to live on the ground. Many of those people are going to perish, even though they. Okay, let me rephrase this and make it. They did not proclaim themselves to be worshippers of Alahayam. They were killed off. All right, they were killed, whether by the beast or by the agents or what have you. They're the ones that will come before him, before the throne, because they did not perform any wickedness, but yet at the same time, they were not worshippers of him. And at the end of the day, he, Hamashiach, Alahayam, Yahweh, they will determine whether or not, based on them, not these people, not the people, but them, Alahayam, Hamashiach, Alahayam, Yahweh, based on their judgment on this person, whether or not they make it into the kingdom. So that is with mixture, where they're going to have the Alahayam is going to have a time to give them a final judgment. But with these ones, without mixture, there's no, that's it, you're done. You're condemned, you're going into the lake of fire. Once you're dead and destroyed, you're going straight into the lake of fire. There's no coming back to see whether or not your names are written in the book of life. I'm telling you right now, they're blotted out. And then, of course, you have the ones that will submit to him. But they still have to come before him to see if their names are written in the Lamb's book of life. At the end of the day, he has the final say. Who will make it in and who will not. It's a sobering thought. I know. It's a sobering thought. Therefore, destruction will come suddenly. I'm not sure if I read this already, but I'll read it again. Therefore, destruction will come suddenly to devastate these people and condemning them in the lake of fire for all eternity before the angels and before Hamashiach. So those who don't make it, those that are condemned, and he automatically send them straight to the lake of fire. Once he's destroyed them, they enter into the second death immediately. The second death immediately. Verse 6 of Revelation chapter 15 revised. And the smoke of their torment ascends up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receives the mark of his name. So, now this has not happened yet. This will happen after he pours out his vials, but he's telling you what will happen to them. This is his judgment on them about their torment And he's telling you who will have to endure the torment. Those who worship the beast and his image and who receive the mark of his name. And even the number of his name, because we know the toxin is going to give you a number. There are many teachings that the toxin is just a precursor, and anyone that takes it can still hope to receive their inheritance if they repent. This is far from the truth, and there are some who will believe this, either to comfort themselves if they took it, or if their loved ones or friends decided to take it, or if they were paid to persuade others to take it. Are all the reasons why people have and will believe that the toxin is not the mark of the beast. Now, the ones that are paid to persuade others are like the leaders. I know a couple years ago, pastors were paid to persuade their congregation to take the beast. And as a matter of fact, some churches were used as the place to go and receive your toxin. And the pastors were the ones that told the people that this is not the mark of the beast. This is you doing your due diligence to make sure that you stay healthy and your family still stay healthy. Those you work with stay healthy because you have accepted the responsibility by taking care of yourself when you take this toxin. And you're making sure that you don't pass on the disease even though you may not have any symptoms. This is what a lot of pastors, even some of them that may have been our people, have been teaching and telling our people. And I know of those that are in the church that I came from have taken the toxin. They've taken the toxin. These are people that are in leadership in the church that saw nothing wrong in taking the toxin. Now, who's instructing them? Who told them that this is not the mark of the beast? The devils, the same people that are running this world, the agents that are running this world, and also their puppet masters who are ruling through them, speaking through them to lure our people to go and take the toxin. After reading about the severe punishment for those who take the mark of the beast, and if people are still willing to take a chance to take the toxin, although we see how the wicked rulers are strongly persuading the populations on the earth with their threats, mandates, and rewards, then it means that these same foolish people will deserve the punishment coming without the final judgment at the white throne. And that may sound harsh, but it's the truth. Now, if people were smart, right, what they would have done is wait for a while to see the effects of this toxin. And let me tell you, if they can, I know a lot of them, if they can backpedal and not take it, they would have gone that way after the fact, because of all the effects that they're experiencing. It's devastating a lot of people's lives. They can't walk, they can't run, they can't work, they can't do anything. And not to mention how many people have passed on because of this thing. You should see what comes out of people, either while they're alive or after they've died. All right? If they had waited and watched instead of being fearful for something that wasn't going to affect them as greatly as what was being pushed, but fear drove them to make that decision which they cannot reverse. No, they're doomed for destruction. Why? Because it's changing them. And listen, If people think that you can make it into the kingdom of heaven with that stuff in your system, you are so deceived. People are deceived. Even the devils are telling you you're no longer human. Even the agents on the earth are saying now you're property. As long as you take this stuff, you're property of the owner of whichever toxin you took. And you no longer have rights as a human being because you're no longer human. You're now a hybrid. But people don't want to hear those words. They want to go along with the foolish narratives that are out there that are encouraging people. It's okay, you'll be fine. Just pray and the Father would, help you through and you still can't have a chance to make it into the kingdom. No, absolutely not. You take it, you're done. Enjoy your life while you have it. Enjoy smelling fresh air, even though fires are burning everywhere. Enjoy the blue sky. Enjoy the white clouds. Enjoy water because you're not going to have water where you're heading. You're heading straight for the lake of fire. And that's what I have here. They have purchased their one-way ticket to the lake of fire and immediately too. So as soon as they're dead, that's where they're heading. Let us see who else will be in this lake of fire. So in case people are not fearful enough of what could happen to them if they take this stuff, I know for me, I'm fearful. First of all, I don't like heat. I don't even like being out in the hot sun. So I wouldn't do well in hell, in the lake of fire. Too hot. So I'm going to make sure that I don't go end up there. Whatever he tells me to do, I will do. Promise me that I will not end up in the lake of fire. I will be living in obedience, not because of fear or not even because I don't like heat. Yeah, no, I don't do well in the heat, but I love him more. And I want to spend my eternity with him. Imagining not being with him for one day is torment. So imagine in eternity without him. No, that's not going to work for me. Absolutely not. Let me sacrifice everything. Let me drop everything off of me. Let me be stripped down to the nub. All right? So that I can spend eternity with him. That's my heart. I don't want reparations. I don't want power and position in this world. I don't want titles. I don't want any of that stuff. Just give me him. I just want to be with Alahayam. I want to spend my eternity with him. So when I read these words on the pages in our manual, I'm going to take it and run with it. And I'm going to err on the side of caution and say, well, even maybe it may not be. No, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to call it that. Toxon, the mark of the beast. There's much evidence to prove to me that it is, so I don't even need to question whether or not it is or is not. Listen, even before this thing happened, this was in 2020, Alahayam told me, he spoke to me clearly. He said they're going to come out with a toxon. And he said, it is the mark of the beast. He spoke it to me. Long before they even spoke about a toxon to help curb the disease, quote unquote. Long before, this was in March of 2020, he spoke to me clearly. He said to me, don't take it. And he just got to tell me that once. And I've been studying the book of Revelation. So he didn't have to say it to me twice. And I gave up my job. I gave up my life because I knew life was going to be difficult in Canada if I had stayed. I remember when he said that to me, I prayed and prayed and prayed. I said, Father, tell me what to do. What to do. He said, you need to get out of Canada. You're not going to be able to live there because of all the things that are coming. This was in March of 2020, before all this madness that you see going on there. And the first place that opened up, I left and I dropped everything. And I just packed my bags and I left. I didn't even know where I was going to get an income from. I could care less. All I needed to do was to get out. And once I obeyed Alahayam, he's the one who's sustaining me today. So all these foolish people that talk about, well, what am I going to do? Money and this and that. Listen to me. I had no idea. I didn't even know that I was going to be where I am. I'm living in Egypt. I had no idea that I was going to be ending up living here for this length of time. I thought that when I left and I came out, that was the time of the regathering. Because back in those days, back in 2020, I believed in the 12 tribes going into the wilderness. That was back in those days. But he did not teach me that. I went and because, all these things were happening. And I went and I started surfing the web and found out about the 12. This was the first time me hearing about the 12 tribes going into the wilderness. And I said, okay, well, I think that's where the Father is leading me. But he didn't say anything to me at that point in time. He just wanted me to get out. Once I came out, then he started teaching me slowly, changing my point of view. He's like, no, you need to veer away from those people. Stay away from them. Anyways, he brought me out and he's sustaining me. And how he's been sustaining me, how he has been sustaining me is a miracle. A miracle. Miracles upon miracles that he's been performing on my behalf because I walk in obedience to him. And anyone who walks in obedience to him, he will also perform obedience. Now, I'm telling you, I don't live in luxury. I live in simplicity. And that's okay. That's okay with me. As long as I have him. All right? So all these foolish people that in order to hold on to a job so you can keep paying for your mortgage or your rent or whatnot, and you think that Alahayam is going to, okay, well, I understand. I understand that you needed money for all these things, so I'll cut you some slack. No, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. Okay, but I'm way off course here, so let me get back here. So let's see who else is going to be in this lake of fire. Revelation chapter 19, verse 20. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So the lake of fire, you're going to have all the devils and demons and Nephilim spirits and death and grave and all kinds of demonic stuff, diseases, you name it, it's going to be there. The only thing that is not going to be there is love. No love, no water. No peace. Pure misery. And you can't die because death is there with you. Torment. All these things are going to be there. Revelation chapter 20 verse 10. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. So this devil that he's speaking of is the last Satan by the name of Gadriel. Gadriel was the one who tempted Adam and Hawa. So Alahayam, Yahweh, is going to deal with him himself. There are two devils that Alahayam Yahweh is going to deal with himself. It is going to be the whore of Babylon, because it drew his people away to pagan worship. In fact, even the inhabitants of the earth, and brought abominations of all kinds upon the earth. Yeah, he's going to deal with that whore himself. And now the last devil that he's going to deal with is Gadriel when he comes out of the pit after the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach. And he's going to cast them both into the lake of fire. Hamashiach is going to deal with the other three because there are 5 Satans, eh? Revelation chapter 20, verse 14. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life, which is also the Lamb's book of life, was cast into the lake of fire. So these are all the demonic, devilish, evil wickedness that is going to be in the lake of fire, along with the agents of Satan. You ever seen them on TV? You ever look into the eyes of some of these agents of Satan? Their eyes are black and dead. And you want to spend eternity with them? You want to take a chance to go and spend eternity with them because of a job? No, thank you. Unless a person loves to take chances because they love the thrill they receive when they do so, well, then they will take this chance to disobey the word of Alahayam, and not to take him at his word, to fear what can happen to them eternally. Ignorance, fear, and rebellion will lead anyone away from the truth, because they are plunged into a darkness where they cannot see. And that's the problem. Not just with our brethren, but the inhabitants on the earth. They worship pagan gods and they think that they're fine. Everything is okay because their gods promise them this. Their gods tell them that. They don't have to do much of anything. They can continue living as they are, enjoying life, right? And they don't have any responsibility. They're not accountable. They just need to live. But then we encounter Alahayam, and he has his commands. He has his instructions that we have to live by, or else we perish. All right. They are blind. Let me read that over again. Yes, they cannot see. They are blind, therefore they will not consider the possibility of the severe consequences to their actions, and they feel safe. That's why a lot of people don't want to hear the truth. They claim ignorance is bliss. If I don't know it, well, I can always say, well, I didn't know. Right? That is truly ignorant, right? And I've always said this, and I've said this in some studies that I've done before. Which one was it? Yeah, Roman Catholic Church and Christianity, and I believe that is from chapter 13 of the book of Revelation, the extension. And what I mentioned there is a demon by the name of Apasmara. Now, I've been calling him by the wrong name. I've made an apology for the study. I think it was part 2 of the 3 days of darkness. I keep calling it Aspamara, but it's not Aspamara, it's Apasmara. But I made a correction, and hopefully people can Google and find it for themselves. Apasmara is the demon of ignorance that leads people to darkness and keeps them there through ignorance. That's why people don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to know the truth. I remember during the earlier on when we had the lockdowns and whatnot, and you start looking into things and you come across videos of documentaries and what have you, studies that people have done to show you things that are going on. And you thought, okay, well, I want my family to know. I want my friends to know. So I'm going to send them these videos for them to watch so that they can be informed. Because like I said, I knew from day one what was going to happen. right? I knew that the toxon was coming. It was next on the list. So I wanted to catch people before they even heard about it, so that they can know that what's coming down the road, right? Was coming. And people just ignored my videos. They ignored anything, any links that I sent them. They don't want to know. And when you start talking to them, they look at you like you got feathers growing out of your ears, and they're smirking like, oh, yeah, there she goes again. And I'm not the only one. I had another friend that was telling me that he used to send out videos to family and friends, and it got to the point where the friends would say, listen, I don't want to know this stuff, right? I don't want to hear about it. My life is fine, and I want it to remain that way. Right? And he got highly irritated, and I said, well, like they enjoy the system. They enjoy living under the system. So when we give them the information now that would disrupt their lives, they're not happy with that. They rather claim ignorance. Me, on the other hand, when I heard things were coming, I was like, oh, I'm ready. And I immediately went and packed my bags and was just waiting to leave. My bags were packed. I think he gave me the information March 16th of 2020. That evening of March 16th, once I understood what was coming, I had my bags pulled out and getting ready to pack. Same day. Did not hesitate. Okay, let's move on to verse 7. Here's the patience. This is verse 7 of Revelation chapter 15, revised. Here's the patience, the endurance, the perseverance of the saints who are the holy ones. Here are they that keep the commandments of Alahayam and the faith of Yahawasha'o. Now these are the words. These words were uttered, but they will be for the northern kingdom when the NWO Beast Empire number 7 rises up. And how we know this? Because it was spoken to the northern kingdom, and you're going to see it in Revelation chapter 13, verse 9. So why then will he have it here in this verse? Well, because like a lot of the things that we read that is for the future, it may be for us, it may not be for us. We still have to glean from his word. Everything is for us. As long as we're living here on this earth and we're not regathered yet, all the prophecies, the word of Alahayam, the manual that he's given to us, all of it is for us. When the southern kingdom is gone, all of it will be for the northern kingdom when they're awakened. When the northern kingdom is gone, now the Gentiles that will worship Alahayam, it is for them now. So they're to glean just like how we gleaned. And they're to learn from us, not the other way around. Because we have a lot of Gentiles out there teaching Yashraal, teaching the southern kingdom. There are a lot of the southern kingdom sitting under other nations and letting them teach them their garbage. Okay. So we know that it will cause a war. This is the NWO. Will cause a war to erupt there will be a war erupt between the two, meaning the Northern Kingdom and the NWO number 7 empire. And it was spoken by Hamashiach for all who have ears to hear and understand that the war must take place. Yes, it's being prophesied. This war must take place because it is the martyrdom of the Northern Kingdom. They have to die. Some of the righteous have to die, and of course the wicked gotta die. The Gentiles are never called saints. Only the two kingdoms of Yashraal, when they are redeemed, they're called saints. When they are in covenant with Alahayam, they're called saints. When they're walking as Gentiles, they're just Gentiles. Doesn't matter if they're from the lineage, they're just Gentiles. That's why I explained about the circumcision. To prove that you're in covenant with Alahayam, you got to go that one step further. Sorry to say this. Some people might unsubscribe because I'm speaking some hard words, but that's okay. It's rather me speak it to you, and it may stick in your brain, and you may think about it, and Rawat HaKadash may impress on your heart about it. I've done my job. I'm not on this YouTube thing for to gain popularity. I know a lot of things that I say is there are hard things to take. All right? So I'm not going to go the easy route and to serve you some cotton candy that at the end of the day then my head is on the chopping block. No, let me speak the truth. I speak it in love. I speak it to encourage and to provoke to righteousness. And then people have a choice to make. I can't force people to do what they want to do. Just like Alahayam, he's not going to force anyone to do what they want to do. Listen, Hamashiach, you think his disciples, he had a lot of disciples. All right? A lot of disciples. And when he started teaching about eating his flesh, we may see that maybe in the next slide. Maybe in the next slide, I think. When he started teaching about eating his flesh and drinking his blood, you know, a lot of his disciples turned away from him because they couldn't handle that teaching. Because it was not, they were not drawn to Hamashiach because of Alahayam, because Alahayam is the one who draws us to his son. But they were drawn to Hamashiach because of the miracles that they have witnessed and the food that he gave to them to eat, the bread and the fish and the miracles. You know, the bread and fish miracles that he did twice. They were drawn to him because of those things. But when it came to the truth now, they couldn't handle it. They could not handle it. And many of his people left him. He was left with the 12. All right? Truth is not popular. Truth is not popular. Okay, let's carry on. So the Gentiles were never ever called saints. Only the redeemed of the two kingdoms of Yashraal. When we come back into covenant with him by obeying his commandments and walking in them, by worshiping him and not other pagan gods, now we're called saints. The Gentiles will have to look to them, meaning the northern kingdom, as their example to live by until they too receive their reward. So Revelation 13 verse 9, if any man have an ear, let him hear. That's the first thing that Hamashiach says. Why does he say that? Because he's not talking about physical hearing. He's talking about spiritual hearing. You got to hear what Ruach HaKodesh is saying. And what he is saying, he's giving you understanding. He's giving you knowledge. He's giving you wisdom. And these things are spiritually derived. You can't just read the words in our manual and be informed. You have to have ears to hear. Because Ruach HaKodesh now, after you finish reading those words or while you're reading the words, he gives you understanding. He gives us understanding. He gives me understanding. He gives you understanding. If he is with us. If we are obedient to him. And that's why many are walking on in darkness, because they're not obedient to him. And so he cannot give them ears to hear. Verse 10, he that leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He that kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. And who was he speaking of in Revelation chapter 13? This was the rise of the beast empire, the NWO. And this is his warning to the northern kingdom. Hey, you're going to have to pick up some swords there. You're going to fight, but you're going to perish. Many of you are going to, not perish, sorry, that's the wrong word. Many of you are going to be slaughtered. You're going to be killed by the sword. That means war. But he's saying, this is the patience and the faith of the saints to endure to endure even while they're going through this war. They're going to have to go through this war for 3.5 years, and it's going to take great patience, great endurance, perseverance to continue on in this war. It's going to be so hard because that's why he called it the time of Yaakob's trouble. But he said, if you persevere, and they how will they persevere? How will they endure? They have to keep the commandments of Alahayam, and they also have to have the faith of Hamashiach. That's what's going to help them to persevere. Some are going to die. Some the righteous ones are going to die. They're the martyrs, and some are going to make it through. Those are the remnant that he's going to bring through this war. But as long as they keep the commandments of Alahayam and the faith of Hamashiach, they all will live and reign with him for 1,000 years. And it's the same thing for the Gentile nations. If they persevere through these trying times that are coming, I mean, they've already been through a lot and there's more coming. But if they keep the commandments of Alahayam and the faith of Yahweh and they stand before the Most High and they receive the reward, they're going to come out on top. They're going to receive a portion of our inheritance. And this is why he's saying, persevere. Persevere like my people. Persevere. It will take great faith and patience for the northern kingdom to endure their persecution through that terrible war that will cause many to die. Yet, if they continue in faith and endure to the end, Alahayam will deliver them. However, it will be the same for the Gentile nations. In order to receive a portion of our inheritance, they too must endure with patience and faith. They have to have faith in Hamashiach. That's the beginning. They have to believe that he is the son of Alahayam. They have to obey the commandments of Alahayam and believe in Hamashiach, just like the 12 tribes had to do so in order to receive their inheritance. There are no exceptions to this prophecy and this promise. But it will come at a cost for many of the Gentiles, because death will come to many due to the judgments being poured out. Because they got to be martyred too. You think only the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom is going to be martyred? They got to be martyred too. For what they believe in. They believe in Alahayam, they're going to be martyred. And a remnant of those that believe will make it through to the end. To live with Hamashiach for the 1,000 years. All right. It will fall on the just and the unjust. And there will be a limited amount of Gentiles left, a very small number, because Alahayam will now make sure that his 12 tribes will always outnumber the Gentiles at the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach and definitely afterwards. So the 12 tribes, after the 1,000-year reign, actually when the 1,000-year reign begins, we will outnumber the Gentiles, and definitely afterwards, we will always outnumber the Gentiles. The Gentiles will be the minority and we will be the majority. But before we move on, I want to speak on something here, talking about the judgments being poured out, and it will fall on the just and the unjust. All right. Now, what I'm saying here is that when he pours out his vials, this last 7 plagues, those who persevere up to this point of time, those who keep the commandments of Alahayam, those who have the faith of Yahweh, even though the plagues are being poured out, it's not going to affect them. No. The plagues will only affect the wicked. So even though it is falling on the entire earth, the righteous of the Gentile nations will be unaffected. He will protect them. He will shield them. They will not have to endure the sores and the scorching sun and the blood in the waters. They don't have to endure any of that. But they still have to go through these judgments. They're the last judgments to sift the final rebels out from amongst them. You remember when the southern kingdom had to be sifted? Up to the point when they were, this is talking about the 3 days of darkness. Just before the 3 days of darkness started, we've been sifted and sifted and sifted. And then once the 3 days of darkness comes, our fate is sealed. The righteous is sealed as the ones that will have the light, and the wicked of our brethren will be going through 3 days of torment and death. The northern kingdom, the same thing. Yes, they went through the 3.5 years of war. They start their exodus. There are going to be some rebels still amongst them, and Alahayam is going to sift them. He allowed the trumpet judgments for them to witness at least 4 of the trumpet judgments. They witness it, but they did not have to endure, because as long as they are on the path that he has given to them and he's the one leading them, they are protected by him. Yet they will witness, and because they are witnessing the horrors that are happening through these trumpet judgments, the wicked ones, the rebels that are amongst them, they're going to flee, because they're going to think, I need to find shelter to protect myself and my loved ones. I need to go look for food. We can't stay here. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. And they're going to leave. And that's Alahayam drawing them away, because they're the rebels, and he's going to destroy them away from the camp until the numbers have been reduced to just the righteous remnant of the northern kingdom. So he did it with the southern kingdom. He did it with the northern kingdom. He's going to do the same thing with the Gentiles. He's going to allow them to witness the 7 vials, and is going to sift them, shake them to the core to see what rises up, whether it's fear for their own flesh, and they're going to run and try. They're going to stop believing him, and just by doing that, it is going to draw them into the curses, the plagues, to be destroyed along with the others. But the ones who continue, that's why he's saying in verse 7, this is the patience. You need to have endurance. You need to have perseverance, like the saints, like the holy ones, the 12 tribes of Yashra'al. You have to keep the commandments. You have to have the faith of Hamashiach. If you continue in that, in that way, there's nothing to fear, even though these things are happening on the earth. Okay. Verse 8, the last verse of chapter 15 revised. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, blessed, happy are the dead. Now these are the spiritually dead, destitute of power. What's that power? Ruach HaKodesh. The quickening power that he gives to us when we believe in Hamashiach. We are restored and we're redeemed. So we now have a new life. And we also have the light that is the life of men, who is Hamashiach. But the Gentiles, they don't have access to the Spirit just yet. They can't. They cannot have access to the Spirit. And until they, they pass through the judgments, now they can receive Ruach HaKodesh. But the Gentiles even living right now, even Yashrael, cannot have Ruach HaKodesh. Only after we are redeemed do we receive HaMashiach, we receive Ruach HaKodesh, and then we are called the saints. But the Gentiles, they're going to have to wait. And they're going to have to prove that they love Alahayam and that they will serve him no matter what, even if it means that they're going to die. So, right, blessed are the dead who die in Yahweh from henceforth. So, the dead, speaking of the Gentiles who are keeping the commandments of Alahayam and the faith of Yahawasha'o. That's why he said, happy are the Gentiles who die in Yahweh from henceforth. They believe in Alahayam Yahweh and they have the faith of Yahawasha'o, but they die. Like I said, they're being sifted. And Alahayam, they're going to have to go through some torments. They're still going to have to be battling these devils for their lives. Alahayam is not killing them, but they're still living amongst the wicked on the earth. Don't forget that. Don't forget they're still living with, there's the beast system, the beast empire, the anti-Messiah or the false prophet. They're still in existence. The image of the beast, they're still there. And once these people, the Gentiles, that purpose in their heart that they're going to keep the commandments of Alahayam and the faith of Yahawasha'o, once they do that, all hell is going to break out against them. All hell is going to break out against them because the devils now are going to be so mad. And that's why Alahayam says, blessed are the dead, blessed are you Gentiles who die in Yahweh from henceforth, because these are the martyrs of the Gentiles, and they must die. They must die. They're not dying because of the plagues, they're dying because the different beasts are going to come out against them. They have not stopped doing their wickedness. The only time they're going to stop doing their wickedness on the earth is when Alahayam destroys them and casts them into the lake of fire. So that's why he said, you're happy. Happy are the dead. Happy are you, the Gentiles, who die in me from here on. Because they're martyrs. Remember, martyrs have a very high calling. Martyrdom is the highest calling of all the calls, of all the services of Alahayam. Yes, said Harawak, that they may rest, they may be refreshed from their labors, from their works, from their troubles, from their work, yes. And their works here speaks of worship. Their worship of Alahayam, it follows them. So these are the righteous of the Gentiles that will be martyred. And they're the ones that are going to join us after the 1,000-year reign. Alahayam is not going to bring them back for the 1,000-year reign on the earth. No. That is only for the 12 tribes. But after the 1,000-year reign is completed and you have the white throne judgment, Their names are written in the Lamb's book of life. They will have eternal life. They will receive Ruach HaKadosh. They will get to bathe in that nice clean water, the sea of water, and they get to eat of the fruit of life. These are all the rewards that they will receive, plus a portion of our inheritance. They're going to have land. They're going to have everything. Because they're worshipped Alahayam. That's going to be awesome. Now, Alahayam is turning his attention to the Gentiles, the ones who will worship him despite the great tribulation that they will be encountering. This will be their opportunity to prove that they will worship him and him alone, because they will keep all of his commandments and do them. And they will also believe in his son, Hamashiach. At this point of time of their sifting, like the 12 tribes have encountered, these Gentiles will not have Ruach Alahayam, the spirit of Alahayam, and are considered dead. They're living, yeah, but they are spiritually dead until they are quickened by Ruach HaKadosh, after they overcome all of their trials and tribulations. Needless to say that all Gentiles, including of Yashrael descent, are spiritually dead. So before I came into the knowledge of Alahayam, I was spiritually dead, even though I am of the offspring of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. That's how we were. We were living like Gentiles. We were worshiping other gods. We were doing all manner of evil, all transgressing his laws and commandments. We were Gentiles. But after we came into the knowledge of the truth, we turned from our wicked ways. We repent of our sins and our transgressions and iniquities. And now we are on the path of righteousness. So we're no longer dead. We receive Ruach HaKadosh, who is our guide, our counselor, our comforter. He is our spirit of truth. When we read the Bible and things are missing or changed, he's the one who brings the correction. That's what he's there for. The quickening of Ruach HaKadosh and Hamashiach make them alive. Even Yashrael, if they believe in Hamashiach and walk in his commandments. That's why all of these ones that are speaking against Hamashiach, saying that we don't need a savior, they're spiritually dead. And they have no spirit. Ruach HaKadosh is not guiding them. He's not speaking to them. They're in darkness. They're in darkness. It doesn't matter how popular they are. They're in darkness and they're leading others down that same path of darkness, that broad way. The blind leading the blind. Yochanan chapter 5 verse 20, for Ha'abba loves the Son and shows him all things that himself does, and he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. For as Ha'abba raises up the dead, that's the Father, and quickens them, even so the Son quickens whom he will. He wills. So whomever Hamashiach wants to bring alive, he does it. He has the power that's been given to him from the Father. And Ruach does it as well. So when we have our first encounter with Alahayam, he's the one who draws us to the Son. And we're given a choice either to believe in the fact that he died for our sins and we're now cleansed for all eternity of our sins and transgressions and iniquities, as long as we repent and we don't do them anymore. No, he sets us on the path and he gives us his spirit, Ruach HaKadosh, who does the rest. Ruach HaKadosh, he leads us on the path of righteousness and holiness. He reveals the Son to us throughout the Word, throughout our manual. And the Son reveals the Father, Ha'aba. And that's how it works. So when you remove the Son from the equation, you're not even near the path. Because you can't get to the path without the Son. Meaning the S-O-N, Hamashiach. You can't get to the path without the Son. So all those ones that are denying Hamashiach, rejecting him, well, we know where they're heading if they don't repent. In fact, they're not going to repent. No. They're not going to repent. You reject Hamashiach, that's it. How can you go back to where you were before? It's like you're on a path, and it's a marked path. It's a marked path. It's not exactly a broad path, but it is marked. You can walk on it. Yes, it has its little bends here, curves, little obstacles. It's okay. You can still, as long as you stay on the path, these little things that are before you, they cannot throw you off the path. But then someone shouts over to you, hey, what are you doing over there? This is the right path. This path over here is wide, is broad, is comfortable, is paved. You don't have to stump your toe. All right? And you can carry as much stuff as you want. On this narrow path that you're on, you can't carry anything because it's so narrow. It's almost like you can't carry anything on your back. You can barely walk with all you have on your back, with your clothes. So you switch sides. You move over to the broad paved way. It's a nice comfy walk. A nice comfy ride. How are you going to first of all, it has to be revealed to you that path is the wrong path. Who's going to reveal that to you? If you reject Hamashiach, obviously you're going to reject Ruach HaKadosh. And they're the ones who keeps you on the straight and narrow path. Yes, you might have a few, trials and whatnot. That's understandable. We fight it against the devils, the unclean spirits. But as long as you stay the course, Alahayam himself is going to help you. But now you've switched and you've gone over to the Broadway. Who's going to draw you back? You've rejected Hamashiach. Who's going to draw you back to the path? How are you going to find your way back? You have no light. And you have no spirit. And the word that you believe in is deception. How are you going to find your way back to this narrow path? You need to be led to the path. Hamashiach leads us to the path because he is the path. He is the way. He said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And once we get on the path, then he gives us his spirit who helps us to see the path as we keep walking on it because he gives us the light. He reveals the Son. He reveals the truth about the Son, and the Son reveals the truth about the Father. And that's our walk right there. But if you switch sides, you switch paths, the devil calls you over and you jump board. And you say, well, I don't need a savior to save me. I can save myself. I can go straight to the Father. That's a life from the pit of hell. So you're on that broad way. Who's going to bring you back? How are you going to find your way back? That's what I'm saying. You lose your path, chances are you're never ever going to find your way back again. All right. Some people are going to have a very difficult time hanging their hat on that thought. Okay, but that's okay. Yochanan, the book of John, chapter 6, verse 63. This is the one that I was speaking of. It is Ruach, the spirit that quickens. The flesh profits nothing. Your flesh is nothing. Your flesh loves all the delicacies of the whore, of religion, getting all dressed up and looking like you're somebody. That's the flesh. Pride. Flesh. And it doesn't do anything for you except to lead you down the path of condemnation. But it's Ruach that makes you alive. It's the spirit of Alahayam that makes us alive. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit, Ruach, and they are life. But there are some of you that believed not, for Yahweh knew from the beginning who they were that believed not and who should betray him. He knew before the foundations of the earth was laid who belonged to him. Verse 65. And he said, therefore said I unto you, that no man can come unto me, except it were given unto him of my Abba. That him there means the person. That should not have been capitalized. So no man can come unto me except it were given unto him of my Abba. So the Father draws us to the Son. The Son draws us to the path. He gives us his Ruach HaKadosh. Ruach HaKadosh reveals the Son reveals the Father. And that's our walk, our spiritual walk, our relationship with Yahweh, Hamashiach, and Ruach HaKadosh. Verse 66. From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. They're the ones, when he started talking about eating my flesh and drinking my blood, they couldn't handle it. They could not handle it because Alahayam did not draw them to the Son. They came out of their own accord. They came because they heard about the miracles and the free bread and fish that he was giving out. So they came for those things. They came because it was entertainment for them. But when he began to speak the truth, they couldn't receive it. The truth is a bitter pill to swallow. Verse 67. Then said Yahweh unto the 12, will you also go away? Then Simon Peter answered him, Adawan, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Verse 69. And we believe and are sure that you are that Mashiach. You are the anointed one, the Son of the living Alahayam. Yahweh answered them, have I not chosen you 12, and one of you is a devil? He spoke of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, for he it was that should betray him, being one of the 12. So even though Hamashiach chose the 12, he chose one that will be the devil, meaning that he was going to be possessed by the devil to betray him to the Pharisees. And Hamashiach knew it. Okay. The only way for any Gentile to receive their portion of their inheritance with us is abiding by the same laws and commandments of Alahayam. That's the only way. The only way for the 12 tribes and the only way for the Gentiles. Their worship must be the pure worship of Alahayam and no pagan gods. These trials that they must endure will seem like torment, But if they persevere in obeying Alahayam, then they will get their just reward. When Hamashiach already knows who belongs to him. When he was in the garden praying, he said, of those that you've placed in my hand, I have not lost save the son of perdition. He was speaking of Judas Iscariot, and I'm paraphrasing here. He already knows who belongs to him. He knew before he came here who belonged to him, past, present, and future. Past, present, and future. We have only one way into the kingdom, and that is through Hamashiach. Hamashiach chose 12 disciples. 11, their hearts were for him. 1 was not, and that was Judas. Judas had his own personal agenda. He had his own personal agenda. When you come to Hamashiach, you cannot come to him with your own personal agenda, because you will become like Judas Iscariot and become a betrayer. Just like the ones that came to Hamashiach and then they decided, we don't need a savior. They have betrayed him. How can you come back? You cannot come back. We're all given a chance, an opportunity to choose who we want to serve, who we want to worship. And it starts with Hamashiach. If you have an ulterior motive for serving him, for worshiping him, because you want popularity or what have you, eventually it will end in betrayal. Why? Because you will come to a crossroad, just like Judas Iscariot. You will get to a crossroad where you either continue on with Hamashiach or you veer off and you betray him. Because Hamashiach is not what you had expected. The path that you were on, it's not happening the way how you expected it to be. You had higher expectations. And those expectations are not coming out. They're not happening. It's not working for you. But you listen to other people and they have these other doctrines and that seems to be working. That seems to work for them and I'm going to, go that route now. Now, I've heard this from people. Trust, I've heard it. Where they were worshippers of Hamashiach, and then they decided to change course, to veer off, because they got to that fork in the road. They got to the fork in the road. And that fork in the road is either to continue on with Hamashiach or to go off and do your own thing without him. Peter's response is the response of the righteous. To whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Remember what I said to you before? If I have nothing, if I'm stripped of everything, as long as I have Alahayam, all three of them, because they're all Alahayam, as long as I have them, I have everything. But if I don't have Alahayam, I'm dead. I'm done. This was the mindset of Simon Peter and the other 11. Where else are we going to go? To whom will we go for the truth? He has the truth. When we listen to his word, when we listen to life that comes from his lips, even though it's written down, it sparks a light within us that we know, that we know, that we know this is the truth. And even though you may feel convicted because he spoke a word and you did something and it comes right to your face, that is his mercy, giving you an opportunity to repent and to make the amends. That is mercy. And those that have this mindset of Simon Peter, to whom shall we go? We will gladly accept the conviction rather than to let pride lead us away from him. Judas Iscariot had a personal agenda. He had an ulterior motive from the very beginning. He was a thief. He was given the money bag. Hamashiach himself gave him the money bag. And he was a thief. He used to steal money out of the money bag. And many of our people are betrayers of Hamashiach even to this day. Even to this day. Because they've turned away from him. And they've gone another way. But thankfully, Alahayam knows who belongs to him, so does Hamashiach. And those that have walked away from him were never his in the first place. And as it was for us, the 12 tribes, the southern kingdom first and the northern kingdom, so it will be for the Gentiles. Whoever decides to walk away from him, that's it. This is the final sifting for everyone. This world is going to be returned to Hamashiach and to his people. And no one, no devil or devils and their armies can stop him. No one can stop him. It's going to end gloriously for the righteous, whether of the 12 tribes or of the Gentile nations. And it's going to be a miserable ending for the wicked. And with that, I will say this is the conclusion of chapter 15. And please stay tuned for chapter 16. There may be another video in between. I believe I'm working on part 4 of the 3 days of darkness. Like I said, we're going to be revisiting, as he gives me information, we're going to be revisiting some major events that are coming. And that is one of them. So it may be after this one or it may be after chapter 16. So with that, I'm going to read the Barayam chapter 6, the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. This is the blessing for Yashwa'al, the 12 tribes. Yebarakak Yahweh wa Yashamarak. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh panayo alayak wa yahanak. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and have favor upon you. Yasha'a Yahweh panayo alayak wa yasham lak shalawam. May Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And I say shalawam, shalawam. All praises to the Most High. Abba Yah.